September 2022. Westminster Abbey. A 7-year-old in a black coat and on her lapel, a horseshoe, diamond, tiny enough to fit in a child's palm. It was a gift from her great-grandmother, worn for the first time on the day they buried the woman who gave it. Princess Charlotte's first significant jewel arrived not with celebration, but with grief. She was 7 years old, and it was not a child's accessory. It was an introduction. This is not a story about jewels. It is about the women who were once girls, and the quiet, centuries-old art of learning, pearl by pearl, to carry what comes next. The rule that was never written down. There is a hierarchy inside the British royal house that no protocol officer ever published. It was never framed and hung on a palace wall. It was passed instead the way most important things are passed, through observation, through example, through the slow accumulation of understanding. Pearls before diamonds, daytime before evening, restraint before splendor. A young princess does not wear what she has not yet earned the right to carry. The rule about diamonds is specific enough that it has been quoted in etiquette discussions for generations. No diamonds before 6 o'clock, except in the most discreet forms. A small stud, perhaps, a modest brooch. Diamonds belong to evening, to state occasions, to women who have already taken on the full weight of public life. Elizabeth II followed this principle with a consistency that jewelry writers noted across decades. Pearls by day, diamonds by night. Even when the diamonds themselves were relatively modest. For children and adolescents, this translated into something even more deliberate. The shift was visible, and it was meant to be. When Princess Charlotte wore that small diamond horseshoe at her great-grandmother's funeral, mainstream outlets described it as her first piece of significant jewelry, and they were right to do so. The brooch was tiny, thematically chosen, and worn for a solemn family ritual. Not a fashion statement, a threshold. And why pearls specifically for the years before that threshold? In Victorian and Edwardian symbolic language, white pearls carried meanings that made them uniquely suited to girls. Purity, modesty. In mourning contexts, they could even suggest tears, which is why they were considered appropriate for unmarried women, brides, and widows alike. For a royal girl, a growing string of pearls was something more than an ornament. It was a visible record of the years spent under her parents' care. A gentle, ongoing reminder that adulthood, and everything adulthood would ask of her, was coming. The coloured stones came later. The diamonds came later still. And the tiara, that most loaded of all royal symbols, came last of all, and almost always with marriage or a formal coming of age, never before. This was the unwritten curriculum, and it began, as most things in the British royal house begin, with Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria's quiet invention. From the moment each of her 5 daughters was born, Queen Victoria gave them 2 fine pearls every birthday. The plan was patient in the way that only a Victorian mother could be patient. By adulthood, each girl would possess a complete necklace, assembled not in a single afternoon at a jeweller's counter, but across an entire childhood. 2 pearls a year, year after year, the necklace growing as the girl grew. Leslie Field in The Queen's Jewels documents this practice in detail. As Victoria's granddaughters multiplied and the price of fine pearls rose, she reduced the number, but she never abandoned the principle. The economics changed, the intention did not. Look at any Victorian royal childhood portrait and you will see the result. White dress, single strand, hair drawn back. The pearls are barely visible, and that is precisely the point. A girl was meant to be seen as a girl. The jewels were a record of the years, not a display of them. Beyond pearls, Victorian jewellers produced specific lines for royal and aristocratic children. Coral beads, believed to ward off illness. Small gold lockets. Narrow bracelets with simple clasps. In portraits of continental dynasties, the Habsburgs for instance, little archduchesses appear in caps decorated with tiny pearl flowers and coral beads, their hair contained in gold nets seeded with more pearls. Rank was signalled, but childhood was preserved. In Britain, the same instinct shaped the gifts given at christenings. A detailed account of Princess Elizabeth's christening notes that senior relatives presented her not with silver spoons, but with small brooches, necklaces and bracelets explicitly described as gifts she would use when youth is reached. The language is telling. These were not toys. They were investments in a future ceremonial wardrobe, pieces kept in trust until the girl was ready to understand what wearing them meant. George VI replicated his grandmother's tradition for his elder daughter. He presented Princess Elizabeth with a slender chain and added 2 pearls on each birthday, so that by 18 she possessed a substantial 3-strand necklace, one she cherished and wore throughout her reign. Jewelry writers who have summarized this practice emphasize that it was treated inside the family as continuity with Victoria's original intention, not as a one-off sentimental gesture. The necklace was not a gift, it was a record of every year, of every birthday, of every quiet step toward the woman she was becoming. The 2 sisters and the Jubilee pearls. 1935, King George V's Silver Jubilee. His elder granddaughter, Princess Elizabeth, receives a 3-strand necklace of fine pearls. The younger, Princess Margaret, receives 2 strands. Contemporary and retrospective accounts agree on this detail, though the precise sourcing of the oft-repeated anecdote varies. What is consistent is the principle. The elder girl receives more because more is expected of her. Their father, the future George VI, would add pearls over the years, so the strands could be lengthened as the girls grew, a direct echo of the Victorian practice, carried forward one more generation. Photographs from the late 1930s show Elizabeth, then a teenager, wearing a neat triple strand with day dresses and simple coats. The effect is deliberate. Youthful modesty and future queenship, held in careful balance. The war years reinforced everything the pearl tradition had already taught. Photographs from 1939, 1942, 1944. Elizabeth in a slim pearl necklace and a coat. No tiara, no diamonds. A future queen learning in the middle of a world falling apart that restraint is itself a form of authority. That choosing not to display is its own kind of statement. Then came her 18th birthday in 1944. Her parents gave her a sapphire and diamond bracelet from Cartier, the first coloured stone, the first diamonds. A small, careful door opening, meaningful precisely because it had been so long in coming. As for Margaret's 2-strand necklace, when she died and her jewels went to auction, it was not among them. It had stayed in the family. Some things, it seems, you simply do not sell. The daughters who followed. Princess Anne, born in 1950, grew up watching her mother treat pearls as the default daytime jewel. Leslie Field notes that in a formal portrait, Anne wears the same thin chain and small pearls that had been given to Elizabeth as a child, suggesting that some training pieces were passed literally from one woman to the next. Not inherited after death. Handed across, woman to woman, while both were still living. By the late 1960s, Anne's parents began giving her more individual pieces. Among the most enduring, a pair of sculptural pearl and gold earrings designed by Andrew Gremer, given to her by Elizabeth and Prince Philip. The design was modern and individualistic, but the central stones were still pearls. The continuity was deliberate. Diana Spencer's ark followed the same pattern, though from outside the palace walls. At 16, serving as a bridesmaid at her sister Jane's wedding in 1978, she wore pearl stud earrings and a pearl necklace, exactly the combination seen on royal girls in equivalent roles for a century. On her 18th birthday, the Spencer family gave her a triple-strand pearl choker with a turquoise and pearl cluster clasp, matching similar chokers given to her elder sisters. She would later have the clasp reset entirely in pearls. But the gift itself sits squarely in the tradition, a girl's legal majority marked by her first truly substantial jewel. The bridge piece, the one that says, quietly and without ceremony, you are no longer a child. Beatrice and Eugenie came of age in a media environment far more intrusive than anything their predecessors had faced, and the response was greater restraint, not less. School photographs show almost nothing. Their first major tiaras arrived on their wedding days. The full ceremonial inheritance deferred deliberately until adulthood had been formally entered. Charlotte and the horseshoe. Returned to Westminster Abbey, September 2022. A 7-year-old in a black coat standing in a line of mourners. On her lapel, a small diamond horseshoe brooch, a personal gift from her great-grandmother, chosen to reflect their shared love of horses, worn for the first time at the funeral of the woman who gave it. On the same day, Charlotte wore a small black hat for the first time, aligning her visually with the adult women in the family, but within a context of mourning and respect, not youthful glamour. The brooch was tiny. The occasion was historic. The combination was not accidental. Charlotte is now 11. As of spring 2026, her publicly documented jewelry beyond that horseshoe brooch remains sparse. This is by design. A generation of royal parents has made a deliberate decision. Living minors should not be treated as fashion plates. Where she has been photographed in simple studs or small bracelets, media coverage tends to skip detailed analysis entirely, a consensus that feels, in the context of everything that came before, like its own form of progress. The pearls will come. The training is being conducted quietly, the way it has always been conducted, and when Charlotte does eventually receive her first pearl strand, it will not be announced. It will simply appear in a photograph at a family occasion, worn with the ease of something that has always been hers. Because in a sense, it already has been. From the moment Victoria gave her daughters 2 pearls a year, the necklace Charlotte has not yet received was already being assembled. The Continental sisters. The British tradition was not unique. It was the most documented version of a practice that ran through every European royal house. Look at photographs of Nicholas II's 4 daughters, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, taken in the years before the Revolution. Plain dresses, small crosses on chains, the most modest pearl necklaces. Their parents presented a pious domestic image, and the jewelry reflected it. The grand tiaras they would have inherited never had their debut. The world ended first. The pearls they wore in those photographs are among the most quietly devastating images in royal history, not because of what they show, but because of what they were waiting to become. In Sweden, Princess Estelle's 2025 birthday portraits show her wearing a heart-shaped pendant necklace and a single row of pearls set as a bracelet. The Swedish court's framing of the image is explicit, a future female monarch becoming well acquainted with pearls early in her life. The language could have been written by Queen Victoria herself. In Norway, Princess Ingrid Alexandra's threshold came at 18. Royal jewellery historian Trond Norén Isaksen revealed that her 18th birthday gifts included Princess Ingeborg's Boucheron pearl circle tiara, originally purchased around 1900 and passed through 3 generations of women before reaching her hands. King Harold and Queen Sonia also gave her an heirloom diamond Riviere necklace and access to pearl earrings associated with Crown Princess Märtha. The leap from almost no jewellery to the full weight of a family's collected history happened in a single evening. In Belgium, Princess Elizabeth received an antique diamond festoon tiara from her parents for her 18th birthday in 2019, confirmed by the Belgian royal court as an acquisition intended to remain in the family. The timing, At 18, not earlier, aligns with the modern expectation that tiaras belong firmly to adulthood. The design, late 19th century floral, roots her visually in the long tradition of European royal women who wore exactly this kind of piece at exactly this kind of moment. The pattern holds across borders, across languages, across centuries. Pearls in girlhood, a threshold piece at 18. The tiara last of all, and only when the woman is ready to carry what it means. The quiet inheritance. Charlotte is 11 years old. Somewhere ahead of her are the pearls she has not yet been given, the brooch she has not yet inherited, the tiara that may one day be lifted from a velvet case and placed on her head, the way it was placed on her great-grandmother's head and her great-great-grandmother's before that. What strikes me, after tracing this tradition from Victoria's daughters to a child at a funeral, is how little it has actually changed. The media environment is unrecognizable, the political world is transformed, and yet the instinct to give a girl something small and meaningful, to let her grow into it, to make the jewels a record of the years rather than a display of them, has survived every upheaval intact. The first jewels are never about the jewels. They are about what the women who give them already know, and what the girls who receive them are only just beginning to understand. Now, I want to ask you something personal. What was the first piece of jewellery you remember being given? Whose was it before it was yours? And looking back, what were you supposed to learn from